Imagine a business where you never punch a clock, never answer to a boss, and never have to be anywhere at any specific time. You wake up, check an app on your phone, and money has already landed in your account overnight. No employees to manage, no storefront to lease, no inventory rotting on a shelf while you wait for customers to walk in. That's the pitch behind vending machines. And it's why so many people quietly dream about this business more than almost any other. Buy a few machines, drop them somewhere busy, and let them work while you sleep. And here's the thing, that dream isn't entirely a lie. There are people running vending routes right now, clearing six figures a year, working a handful of hours a week, doing exactly what the pitch promises. So, what separates them from the much larger group of people who bought a few machines, placed them wherever seemed convenient, and spent the next 2 years driving around just to break even? It comes down to a number most people never think to ask about before they buy their first machine. The vending and micro market industry in the United States generates over $10 billion in annual revenue spread across roughly 4 million machines nationwide. Sounds massive. Sounds like more than enough room for anyone willing to get in. But spread that number out per machine, and the average single vending unit sitting in an average location nets its owner somewhere between $75 and $400 a month, not revenue. Profit. Real in your pocket profit. Now sit with that gap for a second, because that's the gap between the version of this business people imagine and the version most of them actually get. And the difference between those two outcomes has almost nothing to do with luck and almost everything to do with a handful of decisions made before a single machine is even purchased. Get those decisions right, and the passive income fantasy is genuinely real. Get them wrong, and you've bought yourself an expensive, unpaid part-time driving job. So let's slow down and actually walk through how this business works piece by piece, starting with the part almost nobody gets right on their first try. Let's start with the fantasy everyone has walking in. You picture a machine as a silent little robot that prints money while you sleep. In reality, a vending machine is a tiny unmanned retail store, and every problem a retail store has, theft, spoilage, restocking, pricing, competition, exists inside that machine too. The only difference is you're not standing behind the counter to notice when something goes wrong. So before you buy anything, you need to understand that this is not a fully passive investment on day one. It becomes passive only after the groundwork is done correctly. It's a logistics business disguised as one, and the owners who eventually get to enjoy the passive version are the ones who treated it like a real operation at the start. Now the entry cost, because this is where the first wave of new operators gets misled. You'll see ads online promising you can start a vending route for $3,000 to $5,000. Technically true if you're buying a single used snack machine and placing it somewhere with no contract, no data tracking, and no card reader. A real machine capable of competing today, one with a card reader, remote monitoring, and reliable refrigeration for drinks, costs $3,000 to $10,000 new. A combo snack and drink machine sits at the higher end of that range. Specialty machines, the kind that dispense fresh food, electronics, or PPE, can run $8,000 to $15,000 each. If you want to build a real operation, not one machine in your cousin's garage, but a route of 10 to 15 machines, you're looking at $40,000 to $150,000 before you've sold your first candy bar. Here's where the money actually goes, and it's rarely where new owners expect. The machine itself is only part of the bill. You need a vehicle capable of hauling inventory and eventually replacement machines. That's another $10, 0 Zen to $25,000 if you don't already own a suitable van or truck. You need initial inventory, product doesn't appear in the machine for free, and stocking 10 machines for the first time can run $2,000 to $4,000. You need a card reader subscription on every machine, typically $10 to $30 a month per unit, because cash-only machines are quietly losing 30% or more of potential sales to people who simply don't carry bills anymore. You need insurance. General liability alone runs $500 to $5,500 a year. And if you're operating machines that dispense food, you may need additional product liability coverage on top of that. And then there's the cost nobody mentions in the passive income ads, locksmith and lock cycling costs. Vending machines get broken into constantly, and a serious operator budgets $200 to $500 a year per machine just for lock replacement and minor repairs from attempted theft. But here's the trap inside the trap, the one that quietly turns passive income into a second job: working capital. You don't get paid for a sale the moment it happens. If you're running cash heavy routes with irregular pickup schedules, and even with card readers, processing fees and payout delays mean your cash isn't always where you need it when a machine breaks or a lease payment comes due. New operators who spend every available dollar on machines with nothing left over for repairs or replacement inventory are the ones who quietly go under within the first year, standing right where they started, wondering where the passive income went. So let's say you've got your machines. Now you need something more valuable than the machines themselves: a location. This is the single decision that determines whether your business is a genuinely passive income stream or an expensive collection of scrap metal sitting in the wrong break room. Here's the part almost nobody understands walking in. You don't own the location. You're a guest inside someone else's foot traffic, and that guest status can be revoked at any time. Location deals in this industry usually take one of two forms. Some property owners will let you place a machine for free in exchange for the convenience it provides their employees or tenants. Others, especially high traffic locations like hospitals, schools, and large office complexes, demand commission, a percentage of your gross sales, sometimes 10 to 25%, just for the right to keep your machine on their property. A location that looks perfect on paper, hundreds of employees, long shifts, no nearby alternatives, can also be the one that demands the highest commission, quietly eating a quarter of your revenue before you've covered a single operating cost. And this is where the real skill of this business reveals itself. It has almost nothing to do with vending machines and everything to do with foot traffic analysis. The industry rule of thumb is that a location needs at least 50 to 100 people with regular access to the machine to make a standard snack or drink unit worthwhile. Fewer than that, and even a well placed machine will underperform no matter how good your product selection is. More than that, in a location with reliable shift patterns, factory floors, warehouses, hospitals running around the clock, and a single machine can turn over its entire inventory multiple times a week. Here's the mistake that kills first time operators before they even realize what happened: placing a machine somewhere with a nearby alternative. A machine in an office building with a cafeteria downstairs will underperform one in a facility with no food options for a mile in any direction. You are not just competing with other vending machines. You're competing with every gas station, every cafeteria, every food truck within walking distance. Scout the competition before you scout the traffic count, or you'll find out the hard way that your perfect location already has three better options within eyesight of your machine. Now, let's talk about the product itself, because this is where a surprising amount of profit quietly leaks out. The old model, sodas and candy bars at a fixed markup, is dying, and the operators still running it are watching their margins shrink every year. Traditional snack and soda vending runs on a markup of roughly 100% over wholesale cost, meaning a candy bar that costs you 50 cents wholesale sells for $1. That sounds healthy until you subtract commission, spoilage, and restocking labor, and you're often left with a genuine net margin closer to 20 to 30%. Once everything is accounted for, healthier and fresher product lines change that math, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. Fresh food and micro market setups, small unmanned convenience stores with open shelving instead of coiled machines, can command higher price points and see markups of 40 to 50% over wholesale, but they carry a cost nobody budgets for correctly: spoilage. A sandwich that doesn't sell within its shelf life isn't a missed sale, it's a total loss. And operators who don't track expiration dates aggressively can watch 5 to 10% of their fresh inventory turn into pure waste every single week. Then there's the machine's actual capacity constraint, something that sounds obvious until you're the one restocking it. A standard vending machine holds somewhere between 40 and 60 individual product slots. Every one of those slots is a decision, and the wrong decision costs you twice, once in the lost sale from a product that doesn't move, and again in the labor spent driving out to restock a slot nobody wanted. Experienced operators track sell through data obsessively, cutting a product the moment it underperforms for 2 consecutive visits, because every dead slot in a 50 slot machine is 2% of your total revenue capacity sitting there doing nothing. Let's talk about the technology layer, because this is the part that's quietly rewritten the entire industry in the last decade, and the part that finally makes the passive dream achievable. Remote monitoring systems, telemetry that tells you in real time which machines are low on stock, which slots are empty, and which units have a mechanical fault, cost anywhere from $5 to $15 a month per machine. That might sound like an unnecessary expense for a small operator watching every dollar. It isn't. Without telemetry, you're driving out to check machines on a fixed schedule whether they need it or not, burning gas and labor hours visiting machines that are still half full. With telemetry, you route your restocking only to machines that actually need it, and operators who adopt this technology consistently report cutting restocking labor by 30% or more. In a business where your own driving time is often the single largest hidden cost, that's the difference between a route that scales into something genuinely passive and one that quietly caps out at whatever a single person can physically visit in a week. Here's a real name, a real cautionary tale, because this industry has its own version of the collapse story. In the early 2010s, a wave of venture backed smart vending startups promised to disrupt the entire industry with app controlled, AI powered machines that could recommend snacks and adjust pricing in real time. Several of them raised tens of millions of dollars in funding, built beautiful machines, and placed them in trendy tech office lobbies across major cities. Within a few years, most had quietly shut down or been acquired for a fraction of their valuation. The problem wasn't the technology. The machines worked exactly as promised. The problem was that they'd built an expensive, capital intensive answer to a low margin business, and no amount of software polish changes the fact that a candy bar still only sells for $1. They'd optimized the parts of the business that mattered least while ignoring the same brutal fundamentals that govern every operator: real location traffic, real commission rates, and real restocking logistics. The lesson sits underneath everything else in this business. Technology can make a good route more efficient, but it cannot rescue a bad location. Now let's talk about theft and vandalism, because this is the cost category that quietly separates optimistic first-year owners from experienced operators. Vending machines get broken into. It's not a rare event, it's a predictable operating expense. Coin mechanisms get jammed deliberately to trigger free product drops. Machines placed in low visibility areas, poorly lit hallways, outdoor locations without cameras nearby see meaningfully higher theft rates than machines placed in well trafficked, well lit areas. Experienced operators treat visibility and lighting as a placement criterion, just as important as foot traffic count, because a machine that gets broken into twice a month isn't just losing product, it's losing the repair technician's time and the replacement lock cost month after month, quietly eating into a margin that was already thin to begin with. Let's talk about scaling, because this is where the business either becomes the passive income story you were promised or stays a grind forever. A single operator running 5 to 10 machines is in practice running a part-time logistics job, driving to each location, restocking manually, collecting cash, and handling every mechanical breakdown personally. The math works, but the ceiling is low, because there are only so many hours in a week one person can spend driving between locations. The operators who build real passive income from this business are the ones who cross a specific threshold. enough machines that they can hire a part-time route driver, typically once a fleet reaches 25 to 40 machines, spreading fixed costs like the vehicle and insurance across enough revenue to make hired labor worthwhile. Below that threshold, every hour you spend driving is unpaid labor subsidizing your own margin. Above it, you start looking less like a person with a side hustle and more like a small logistics company with recurring, genuinely hands off revenue contracts deserve their own mention, because this is where many new operators get burned without realizing it until it's too late. Location agreements often include exclusivity clauses, meaning you can't just walk away the moment a better opportunity appears down the street, and cancellation terms that can leave your machine sitting in a declining location for months after you've realized it's underperforming. Read every placement agreement before signing it, because the commission rate on page 1 is rarely the clause that costs you the most money. It's usually the term buried near the bottom about minimum contract length and removal notice periods. So, how does the math actually work once you've got a real functioning route? The one that finally looks like the passive income dream you started with. A well placed standard snack and drink machine combination can generate $300 to $500 a month in gross sales in an average location, and significantly more, $1,000 or beyond in a high traffic spot like a large factory floor or hospital break room. Subtract wholesale product cost, typically 40 to 50% of gross sales. Subtract commission if the location demands it. Subtract card processing fees running 2 to 3%, and subtract your share of restocking labor and fuel. What's left for a well-run machine in a strong location is a net margin in the 20 to 35% range. Multiply that across a fleet of 30 machines, each generating even a modest $400 a month in gross sales, and you're looking at $12,000 in monthly revenue before costs, translating to roughly $3,000 to $4 0 Zen a month in real profit once everything is accounted for. That's the version of this business that actually delivers on the promise. It just takes longer to get there than any ad ever tells you.